Hi, this is State Representative Roger Bruce, and welcome to this week's edition of Under the Gold Dome. I'm State Representative Roger Bruce, and I represent District 61, South Fulton County, Douglas County, and Cobb County, parts of the city of Atlanta and the new city of South Fulton. And, we have a couple of good guests today, and we'll introduce them shortly. In the meantime, Deborah, Sonia, and Derek, anything you want to say?
Good afternoon, all again. We are here under the Gold Dome. Thank you for checking in again with us, and especially since it's our last show until we come back in September. Of course, if you remember, I represent District 63, a portion of Fulton, Fayette, and Clayton counties, and a lot of cities in between. So thank you again.
Hello, welcome again to Under the Gold Dome. I am Senator Sonia Halpern. I represent District 39, which is in Fulton County, representing many wonderful neighborhoods in the cities of Atlanta, College Park, City of South Fulton, East Point, and Union City. Glad to be back with you here again this Friday.
Derek?
Hello, I'm Representative Gary Jackson. I represent District 64, and it's Friday, so let's go ahead and get the show started. Representative Bruce.
All right. As was mentioned just a moment ago by Representative Bazemore, this will be our last episode for this season. We will be back September the 10th, and we got a lot of things lined up for you to make sure that you go into the new year with a lot of good information, and this year with a lot of good information. And in the meantime, we're going to be showing some of our old episodes so that, those that you have not seen, you'll have an opportunity to see them going forward. So with that, we're going to go ahead and get started. My guest this week is Nancy Johnson. She is the CEO of the Urban League. And the reason why we asked her to join us today is because a lot of people have been going through a lot of difficulty as a result of this virus. People have lost their jobs. People have had to go through retraining to learn how to do other things. It's just a tremendous disconnect for a lot of people. And Ms. Johnson, her organization, we're going to have her explain exactly what the Urban League is and what they do. But they also have access to colleagues that they work with in terms of being able to help people through this transition process. So with that, Nancy, why don't you go ahead and start telling everybody about the Urban League and what services you guys have to offer.
Okay, thank you, Roger. Roger, you have been just a tremendous partner of the Urban League, and we appreciate all that each of you on this Under the Gold Dome, our hosts, do every day. So first, I want to share that Urban League is celebrating 100 years of service to the Metro Atlanta area. Thank you. It's a big milestone. And as we led up to that milestone year, we started working on really figuring out what could we do to enhance the work we do. And so what we decided to do is to adopt a new economic mobility model that the Local Initiative Support Corporation developed. And so we are a financial empowerment center. And the way it works, it's really a simple model. It really worked well with all the work Urban League generally does. But there's three phases to the FEC. First and foremost, we meet people where they are. We know coming off the pandemic, some people have been some families thrown off their financial square, lost income, fallen behind in bills and rent and mortgage payments. And so very early on, Urban League knew that people would need access to money, to financial help. And so over the past year, we've raised $1.7 million from various sources, and we've served over 1,000 families to keep them in their homes for rent, for mortgage, for utility payments, food, childcare. We've helped several people keep their cars, pay car insurance, anything that was emergency in nature that would keep a family safe and secure. We will be getting some additional resources in the near future from DeKalb County, it appears, and some private sources. So that's one of the key things we'll still be able to do. And we're raising money right now because the June 30th deadline, at least as it stands right now, will be the deadline for the eviction moratorium. And so many landlords will start to execute eviction proceedings. And we want people to know that Urban League is here to help you connect with opportunity. So, Kevin, do you want to play our video? You were reading my mind. Okay, cool. So we'll take a break and he'll show you our video real quick. Except I don't hear the sound. No sound.
Yeah, it looks good, but we can't hear it.
I know. Well, you'll get some of the visuals. So we'll come back to that. But so emergency financial assistance, that's number one. If we can't provide it, our job is to find out where the resources are in the various counties and cities throughout Metro Atlanta. Number two, we know people need to get back to work. And so we have a workforce development center. We have a career connection center. This is a great time for people who are either unemployed or underemployed. And anybody who says, I got to make more money, you come see the Urban League, because our job is to connect you with the high demand, high paying sectors that exist in our state and the region. The good news for us is Georgia's ranked number one for business. Out of all of the states in the nation, Georgia is ranked number one by business. That's a good thing. The interesting thing about Georgia, though, is that we're also pretty close to being number one for poverty. And what that means is we're not doing the best job of connecting the opportunities that businesses bring, which is jobs, which is small business contracting opportunities, to the citizens of the state. And that is a function of many factors, which I'm sure many of our Under the Gold Dome elected officials will talk about every week with you. But we have to have more people that have our best interest working with business to understand ways to support our community to pluck. So here's the deal. We're number one for business, which means there's good paying jobs that don't require four-year degrees necessarily, but a lot of Georgians don't have the skills for those good paying jobs. Here comes the Urban League. We're here to help you tap into your talents, your interests, your goals, your dreams. We ask you, what is it you want to do and be? And some people know, I want to be a nurse. I want to be an auto mechanic. I want to be a lawyer, whatever that may be. And our job is to help equip you to get there. But some people, lots of people say, I really don't know what I want to do, right? And so we have the tools and processes in place to expose you to where the money's being made. So where's the money being made in Georgia? It's being made in healthcare. It's being made in the building trades, plumbers, electricians, welders. It's being made in the hospitality industry, culinary arts, management. It's coming back. It's being made in the film and television industry, $9 billion every year. We got to have more Georgians making money in that space. The financial services and banking and information technology. Those are 6 of the hottest sectors, and there's tons of occupations. We can help you figure out what's best for you and show you how to go to school for free. FREE. You like that? I know you like that.
We like free.
We like free.
We like free. You know, you had a question that came in that was asking about summer programs.
Great. Yes.
Do you have summer programs? That came from Bruce Dobbs.
Okay. Hi, Bruce. Yes. We are stationed at the 2 at Promise Centers in the city of Atlanta. Both at Promise Centers have summer programming. So if you're interested, visit our website, and there's a page there with all of our staff listed. And you can feel free to reach out to our youth services team and see if there's a program that works for you and your child. We also have a high school summer program. It's a STEAM Academy that will start shortly. And it's primarily for high school students at George Washington High and Douglas High, but we do take students from other schools if space is available. So yes.
Okay, and there's another question came in from Yvette Dorham. You
Yes.
see it?
Yeah, I see it. Are the Urban League programs partnered with the Department of Labor approved training programs? Absolutely. That's one of the ways that we help people go to school for free. So yes, we do.
All right.
All right. Food banks. Yes, we partner with Hosea Helps, the Atlanta Food Bank. Our job is to know where the resources are. And so we have many, many partners. We can't do the work all by ourselves. So one other thing I'll tell you, every Tuesday at 11 o'clock, you can Zoom in to the Urban League for access to rapid employment. We have employers every Tuesday that are looking for people in almost every sector you can imagine. And more, there are jobs that people can work from home. We understand that childcare is still a huge barrier to people returning to work. And so we can support you to find childcare options and to hopefully find something you can do from home if that's what you need.
All
Thank you very much.
Do our other hosts have any questions before she goes away?
A lot of good information. Thank you so very much. And it's always a pleasure to see you.
Thank you, Deborah. Thank you. Good to be here. So before I close real quick, I just want to say we also help small businesses. We have an entrepreneurship center. We have several programs that offer grants. We just awarded $10,000 to 6 Black-owned restaurants in Metro Atlanta through our Black Restaurant Accelerator program. And we'll be doing more work there over the summer months. So we provide help for technical assistance, access to capital contracts, and to help businesses really build capacity. One thing I want to put on your radar, if you're a small business and you do construction or any kind of infrastructure work, Centennial Yards, you remember that big project, the big hole across the street from Mercedes-Benz Stadium? That project is going to jump in the next 6 months. Get ready. We're going to be hosting a lot of webinars to get people certified with the city. You'll have to be certified with the city of Atlanta, and we're partnering with the city and SIM, the developer. We want to support as many Black businesses and small businesses, local businesses, to get these opportunities as possible. It's a $5 billion project.
Yeah.
All
So
right.
Nancy, let me just say this. Every year I have a Small Business Owners Day at the Capitol.
Oh, you do? Yes.
And of course, last year we couldn't because of COVID, but we have to partner, bring everything, and I'll bring my resources. Let's make it a good day.
We will. You got my commitment to that, Deborah. We will make that happen.
Great.
Okay. All right, everybody. We appreciate this opportunity.
Hang on, Nancy. But let's make sure that everybody got their questions in. Sonia,
I don't have a question, but I just want to say, I mean, oftentimes we don't realize what's in our very own backyard. And I think sometimes, like, I'm listening to everything that you're telling us now. And when you say it in such a comprehensive way, I mean, I just think that there's so many opportunities for all of us to be able to tap into the work that you're doing.
Yes.
And, it'll look different for each of us, but you've got something for everybody. So thank you for really not just standing in the gap, especially since the pandemic, and really amping up some of the efforts, but for every day for 100 years being here and doing what you do and evolving with the needs of our community all along.
Thank you for that. And we are going to meet because we are going to be big partners.
Yes, we are.
Also, thank you for that.
And just so that you guys know it, she is also one of our walking partners that we on Tuesday morning. We're over at Sweetwater Creek State Park at 9 o'clock in the morning, and on Tuesdays we meet at the visitor center, and we walk and we sweat and we lose pounds.
We stumble every now and then.
Yep. So come on out and join us. And again, thank you so much.
Okay, I see one last question. If I could answer it, I'd love to.
Okay, go for it.
About vaccinations, Bruce, you're right on it. Urban League is partnered with the National Urban League and the CDC on vaccination access. So we have a number of dates coming up. They'll be posted on our website. We're partnering with MARTA, CVS, Walgreens, the VA, and several big employers so we can make it accessible. And we want people to have access to the information they need to make a good decision for themselves on taking the vaccine. We want everybody to be safe so we can get back to our, quote, new normal.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us. Right. We appreciate it.
Okay.
Have a great weekend. Okay?
Have a good one. Thanks for having me.
All problems aren't created equal. Each person's success requires a unique approach. From the soldiers who find themselves on a new type of battlefield, to the wild vines determined to grow. From the rough patchers to the up-and-comers, the go-getters, the what's-nexters, game changers, and the see-it-throughers. The Urban League of Greater Atlanta is here to help where few are willing to. We are a dedicated, person-to-person organization invested in the economic success of African Americans, coaching them to a better life. We evaluate where they are, equip them with what they need, and help elevate them to where they want to go. The Urban League of Greater Atlanta, empowering communities, changing lives.
All right. That was great.
Wow. Thank you, Kevin.
I like that.
Bye.
All right.
Bye.
Take care, Deborah. All right, Deborah, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you, Representative Bruce. So good afternoon again. My guest today is Tamara Grant. This young lady has...
Looks like she's wearing a crown on there. Is she wearing a crown?
I'm sorry.
Looks like she's wearing a crown.
I'm wearing CAU, but no, that is actually my mandala in the back that I have hanging for good energy.
Okay. So her name is Tamara Grant, and she has a master's in social work, and she's holistic health practitioner. So she dabbles in many different areas of mental health and just being healthy. And so because of this pandemic, and even prior to the pandemic, we all know we have been stressed, we've gone through. So I thought it was apropos to have her on to talk about what she's seen and what she can do to help you get healthy again. Tamara,
Thank
please.
you. Thank you so much. You know, I don't believe in coincidences or things happening by chance. So meeting Representative Bazemore, we were just like randomly at a coffee shop in Stone Mountain and struck up a conversation sitting next to one another, and started talking about mental health and just how we've weathered the storm with COVID. This has been unprecedented in our lifetime. None of us in our lifetime have ever gone through anything remotely close to what we just endured with having to quarantine and basically shut our lives down for about a year. I heard something on the radio today that was saying, like, if we look back to last year at this time, we were also quarantined to our houses, not really understanding what it was that we were going to look forward to, when we were going to be able to leave out, when we were going to resume our normal life. And so now we're in this space where we're having to accept and understand that we're not going back to the way things were. We're going to have to move forward to a new normal and figure out what life is going to look like on the other side of this thing. So we've got, you know, vaccinations rolling out, and everybody has their ideas, their personal ideas on what to do where that is concerned. But mental health wise, it has really wreaked havoc on folks because we've had to pause. We live a lifestyle, especially in Western civilization here and in the US, where we're constantly on the move, constantly moving, constantly plugged in. Muted myself for a second, where we're constantly plugged in, constantly moving. There's social media. You're always connected some way, somehow to someone else. And one thing that having to quarantine with COVID proved is that at some point we have to pause. And at some point we have to pivot. And what does that look like on the other side of things? So as Representative Bazemore mentioned, I have a master's in social work, have only ever worked clinically. Sometimes people confuse when you say that you work as a therapist in social work because they assume that you work for DFACS and go take people's kids out of their homes. And that I've never done that, never worked on that side of things. I've only ever worked clinically as a therapist doing individual therapy, assessments, diagnostics, and things of that nature. And over the past year, I have really seen a surge in people wanting to finally address mental health. And one of my goals was to really make sure that I helped to normalize mental health for people of color. Very much for people of color, we come in and we're like, we're just going to pray it away. We're just going to, that's it. We're going to pray it away. And it's like, no, God made therapists too. That's why we're here. There's somebody to address every part of your being. And so I'm like really, really excited that men and women alike are coming in and saying, you know what, I've had this stress that is on me. I need to talk about it. I need to address it. We've had job changes. We've had, I had an influx of people who came in who weren't used to being with their spouse the amount of time that they had to be with their spouses during quarantine. Nobody ever sits in the house for that extended amount of time with their family. In completion, families were separated. Sometimes people were traveling and then all of a sudden here comes the quarantine. So what do you do when, you have folks that are separated and for an indefinite amount of time? Those were a lot of the things that people were coming to me with and wanting to have an understanding. Why does it seem more difficult? That's a really good question. And it is a question that is part of why I want to normalize mental health for people of color. We come from, I think, in our communities, we like to keep things hush hush. We like to sweep things kind of under the rug. And it's like, you keep this in our house. We don't talk to people about things. That is detrimental to us. It's detrimental because we go to the grave with these family secrets. You kind of prop your drunk uncle up at the table and don't talk about it, but he really needs to slump over because he's been drunk for years. It's like we have all of these things that we sit and we stare at on a daily basis and never address and can't figure out why we can't get over the hump. And these things get passed down unnecessarily, and we call them, family secrets and family trauma. It's completely unnecessary. Doesn't have to happen. We have to be able to speak up and understand that talking about mental health and dealing with mental health is not a weakness. It's a human condition, and we're all human. So that's a great question.
So, Tamara, what would be some of your, I'm sorry, there's another question, I believe.
When do you decide it's time for help? Are there signs? Oh, that's a really good question too. I typically let people know that you have to be invested in your mental health. And I'm going to say mental health, but this also includes substance abuse. I did extensive work with both sides of things. I worked for 20 years in Atlanta in chronic mental health and substance abuse. And typically the two go hand in hand. And what I find is that everybody has their limit. But you have to be invested. I can't tell you how many times I had families come in and want to stage an intervention. And if your loved one isn't ready, the work is not gonna it's not gonna stick. They're not gonna maintain it. They have to be the ones to manage it, and that's kind of the downfall of dealing with a loved one who has chronic mental health or substance abuse issues, because the family usually needs them to have the help and they're not at capacity to maintain it. But definitely people tend to seek mental health treatment when they're at their breaking point. Yeah. And that differs for everybody.
Thank you for that. One of my colleagues said we need to move mental health treatment to other locations outside of the jails. It is hard to get families and friends treatment. So
that's a good point. It's actually all not inside the jails. And I'm going to be honest, the stuff that they do inside the jails is marginal, at least. So they're not really doing treatment inside the jails. That is typically when sometimes people access it because they're court ordered to do some type of treatment. Typically court ordered folks don't go through with the treatment anyway. They're just kind of there and it's not working because they're not invested. Here in Georgia, we have what we call community service boards. And I'll see if I can put the number to the Georgia Crisis Access Line, possibly in the chat. But there are community service boards that are pretty much set up through each county or cluster of counties. You can access the community service boards through the Georgia Crisis Access Line. But the other thing is, which a lot of people are afraid of, and this is where not being educated about how to access mental health comes in. There are HIPAA laws. These laws are guaranteed to make sure that your personal information, your personal health information is not given out to anyone, anywhere. And so if you access mental health through your personal health insurance, they're not going to call and tell anyone in your family or notify anybody else that you're going to see a therapist. That is your own private information. So I usually suggest that people first check with their personal private health insurance to see if they can do any type of outpatient therapy. Outpatient therapy is just you tapping in and talking with a therapist once a week or once every other week. With COVID, a lot of therapists have gone to what we call telemental health. You'll see that at your, just your regular PCP doctor's office. A lot of them have gone through telehealth as well. So you can do anything from assessments to your one-on-one therapy sessions through telemental health on just like we're doing here virtually. It's not an issue. So a lot of people, it's an incorrect notion that, some way, somehow they're going to be able to tap in. Like your job will know that you're going to see a therapist. Your job will not know you're going to see a therapist at all. No one will, because we are bound by HIPAA laws to not share that information. And honestly, just a little extra, we have to, as therapists, have certain ways of keeping your information encrypted. So like we can't just send stuff over like your regular email and things like that. We have to keep all of that information in file sources that are encrypted. So it typically, I've worked it for 20 years. I've never seen anybody's information get out like that.
Tamara, thank you so very much. And I just want to, I'm going to allow my colleagues to say something, but I really want to urge everybody, please go if you feel the need to go early on. I have
Yes.
a personal story because my oldest sister suffered for over 30 years. And it didn't just affect her, it affected her children, it affected me, her siblings, my parents, all of us, the whole village suffered. And because she did not like medicine, it made it even worse. And the laws sometimes, because, and I know they're there to protect the individual, but they say if they're not a harm to themselves or anyone else, family members or anyone, you can't do anything, anything. Your hands are tied. So just go as soon as possible. Just have a conversation and just to get it off of you.
Mm-hmm.
So
And I want to just kind of add to that. And things differ state to state. In Georgia, we have what are called probate laws. So you may have a family member who is a harm to themselves. I worked as an LCSW, a licensed clinical social worker, so I was able to sign what was called a 1013, which is an involuntary order to have you committed if you presented as being a harm to yourself or harm to others. There are very stringent criteria on signing that order because it's basically me saying, I saw you and I don't feel like you have capacity, so I have to sign this to take your rights away. Mental health, it's very hard. There's a fine line that falls there. And so, but in Georgia, you can go to the probate court and say, you know what, there's a list of things and you have to kind of check them off and talk with the judge and say, you know what, my loved one is not at capacity to be able to manage for themselves. They may be a harm, and they can sign a probate order that would come to an LCSW. And then they would have the sheriff only as an escort, not as an arrest, come to pick you up to make sure you get there safely. So there are things that you can do, but like I said, if you're not connected and tapped in, you don't know just for general public. I'm seeing this question here. Chronic homeless and mental health.
There's a couple more questions come in.
I'm looking at chronic. Yeah. So here and I'm only speaking about Georgia because this is where my whole career has been. Like I said, things differ in different states. But I don't feel like there is enough being done as far, and this is where we have to vote. This is where our representatives have to know what we're dealing with while we're out there in the streets dealing with chronic mental health and mental illness. There aren't enough housing and things like that for the homeless. People typically think of the homeless as being people who are down and out and destitute. Most people are a paycheck away from being homeless. Like one paycheck. If they lose one paycheck, COVID hits, you didn't get paid because you didn't go to work, boom, everything is gone. When this stay gets lifted, the chronic homelessness is going to kick back in. A lot of the homeless shelters do not allow teenage boys to be there in the shelter. So if you are a mother and you have a teenage boy, you may be separated from your son. That's an issue. So people don't want to go to the homeless shelter because they can't keep their family together. A lot of clients who are chronically mentally ill and on disability, Georgia pushed a few years ago to have everything be community mental health based. So they were staying in group homes and disappearing from the group home because they're chronically mentally ill and they can't keep a job. So they're out wandering the streets, panhandling. So then when you have those panhandling laws come in, you're literally arresting someone who is chronically mentally ill. These things are cycles. And so we're constantly putting a Band-Aid on a gushing wound and never really addressing what is at the heart of the issue. So chronic homelessness, we have to change the conversation and the definition of what is considered homeless in order to address the issue correctly, if that makes sense.
You look like you got a couple more questions that came in there.
Suggestions do you have for families needing help with their teenagers experiencing mental health crisis? Teenage years is...
Mention the name of who's asking the question.
Oh, this is Viola Davis. What suggestions do you have for families experiencing mental health crisis with teenagers? The teen years are typically where your psychotic breaks take place, and a lot of where your diagnoses actually take place, and they stick. We typically can't diagnose kids who are between about 8 and 10. But they would have to have some chronic, well, about 8 and 12, really. But they would have to have chronic, like severe behaviors for us to give them a more adult diagnosis. So typically between about 6,
We lost her.
She's frozen.
Roger, you want to go?
Okay, it looks like she's.
Mm-hmm.
We lost her.
Yeah, we lost her.
Okay.
Can I just say that I had a mental health check-in event, and I plan to have more throughout the year because we can't stop talking about this issue. Thank you.
Absolutely.
And I was only going to add to the conversation. I was going to ask, but I mean, I do think the one thing about COVID and everybody being more at home is that telehealth and telemental health services seems to have increased. And so for people who may not live, like we're in a metro area here, you know, we can find therapists, we can find referrals to people, but being able to find somebody that you like and talk to, whether they are right in your, you know, city or whether they are not, I think that's one plus that's come out of COVID is the expansion of people's ability to dial in for health services when they need it. And I just want to say that's something that I think will continue because even this past legislative session, we really expanded some of the laws around telehealth and allowing people to be able to even tap into therapists from other states, from this state, that kind of a thing. Acknowledging that this is a real problem.
Our new normal.
Okay, it looked like she was trying to get back on, but you know, she popped out again. So why don't we go ahead and Sonia, you go ahead with your topic.
Yeah, my topic, and I'm not going to talk too long, and we can toss back to this topic and then to Representative Jackson. I really wanted to, I know weeks ago we talked about unemployment and some of the changes that were going to take place with the federal benefits. And so now that we are in June, I wanted to revisit that conversation because there's been some additional new changes that have taken place or been announced over the last 2 days. And I wanted everybody to just be aware of those. You may remember that as of June 26th, so just a couple of weeks, anybody who is taking advantage of some of the pandemic relief, the $300 additional unemployment benefit that is coming down as a federal benefit, Georgia is, I would say, prematurely suspending that. And so that will no longer be able to be on the table. And so I think that's a really important thing. June 26th is the trigger date for that. Compounding that is the fact that as of June 27th, the State Department of Labor is also reinstating the rules that it had around eligibility prior to the pandemic, which means that if you're able to work, available to work, well, that you have to prove to get unemployment, you're going to have to prove that you're able to work, available to work, and actively seeking work. What does this actually look like and mean? It means that you must register with this new website. and it's called Employ Georgia. So in order to get unemployment benefits, you're going to have to register into Employ Georgia, and you're going to have to make 3 new job search contacts each week. There's right now 230,000 jobs listed on that site. We spoke earlier with Ms. Johnson at the Urban League, and they have jobs. So there are jobs available, and hopefully people will be able to tap into them, but you are going to have to prove that you are actively trying to work. The other thing too that's changing is that the 300, that there was a benefit where $300 is being reduced to $150. So if you have reported earnings more than $150, those will be deducted dollar for dollar from your weekly entitlement amount. So overall, all of this together means your benefits will be going down if you're already eligible and receiving. I think it's important for you to understand how things are shifting just in the next couple of weeks. The other thing that I wanted to just note here is that there are some changes that are happening for employers as well. And these are kind of unique for Georgia. I mean, we're really testing relatively untested ideas here, and we are one of not that many states that are taking this approach, but partial claims are going to recommence. So those were suspended also during this pandemic era. And so now employers are going to be, are allowed to submit for 6 consecutive weeks of partial claim with no earnings. So your employer is going to have to week by week submit for you for 6 weeks. After the 6 weeks, you will be thought to be permanently suspended or let go, at which point the individual can then request for themselves. But for the first 6 weeks, people are going to be reliant on their employers to make that request, which is relatively untested. This is not typical in a lot of states. So that is why I wanted to just raise that here. The other thing is that that employers are now going to be asked to report online any job refusals for employees. So any employees who refuse to either report to work, return to work, or refuse an offer of work, employees are being asked to submit that information online, and it can also negatively impact somebody's ability to get their unemployment insurance claims.
None of this sounds good for citizens.
None of it is,
and especially the fact that, for people who have not getting the benefits for the last year. And now on top of that, they're putting all the new restrictions on. This is ridiculous. We can't allow this to continue.
We have some of our constituents with over $9,000 owed to them. This is insane.
I did a look back of all of the constituents of mine who've asked me since January for help. And, we've talked about this here before. Unfortunately, we don't have authority, even in the General Assembly, to actually process a claim or really look and see where you even are in the queue to a claim. We don't have authority over that department in that way. What we can do, and what I know we all have been doing, is reaching out to the department, to our liaison, providing very specific information about our constituent and asking them to make sure that they're not pushing it through and jumping line, but take note that this person has reached out, and please make sure that you're moving forward with the processing of this claim, or whatever your process is, move forward. I just did in the last week a kind of audit on where those claims stand for my constituents who asked. I went back to the constituents themselves and to just see had they even heard back. And I have like a third of my constituents have heard nothing. And so, I mean, I will tell you that, you know, this is where we've got to modernize our Department of Labor. This is also, you know, we've got to, it is a constitutionally elected position. It's a constitutional officer. This is going to be a position that is on the ballot next year when we do our statewide elections. This department is critical and has proven itself to be even that much more critical in this past year. And we can do better for Georgians. We are failing Georgians. Bruce Dobbs is asking, is there a line to call where a real live person answers the phone and can explain all that has happened and what is happening? And Representative Bazemore is shaking her head.
Nope.
I mean, it is embarrassing to have to tell you that the answer is no. I had a constituent literally just this week who was on hold for hours. And then at some point, 3.5 hours later, got some automated message that said that the system was overburdened, whatever, and it hung up on him. So it is true that people can't get through, and we in the legislature, we've tried to do some things. Certainly, I want everybody to know that, you know, we are also putting an earful into the governor's office about what's happening, and also trying to push for some change.
So the public will have an opportunity to impact that change with the election coming up, and we need to go ahead and switch over to Derek before we run out of time.
And if we have time, I just want to add something to that.
Okay, Derek disappeared again. Okay, there he is. Derek, you're up.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hear me, Roger?
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, before I mention my topic, the only thing I would say with regards to Senator Halpern, there seems to be this move afoot when they blame the working families, right? They come out with this, all these issues against the working families instead of fixing the problem, right? Like the Department of Labor should hire more people to process these unemployment claims. And let's just start there. And so I definitely agree with Senator Halpern's comments. But a couple weeks ago, my good friend, Representative Bazemore, mentioned on this very show about critical race theory. And it's continued to get heated. So this week, I just want to add some commentary to critical race theory, because critical race theory is not new, right? It's been for over 4 decades, over 40 years. And every time you hear the word critical race theory today, though, people start saying, oh, it's reverse racism, or there's other, you're banning others' history, whitewash, and some, depending on which side you're on, they're like, is America a racist? Is the military a racist, right? They always, like to throw these things out because we find ourselves today, Representative Bruce, in this cultural battle. Right? During a time where our democracy is so fragile, right? Critical race theory, for those who don't know, is simply just saying, let's talk about our history, America's history, both the good and the bad, period, right? When you think about, is America racist or not, I would just say, just look at the facts, right? When you think about critical race theory, just look at the facts. For example, in the Constitution, right? Article 1, Section 2 of the Constitution, it states any person who was not free would be counted as 3/5 of a free individual. So that 3/5 clause starts the conversation right there. When you look at someone that's not free, and that was predominantly Blacks, African Americans, Negroes, right, that were not free. And so if you look at someone of color as 3/5 of a person, already you're not recognizing their value and the contributions to this country. You're already demonizing their whole worth, right? We recall just a few years ago when the whole argument between 1619 versus 1776, when the 1619 project came out, right? Immediately, people want to discount what took place with slavery, but yet they want to go ahead and point to 1776, talking about the independence of America, right? The beginning of this month, we were talking about the 100 years since the Tulsa, Oklahoma massacre, right? And how the Tulsa, Oklahoma massacre, the Black Wall Street, was devastated by a white mob, right? Where nearly 300 African Americans were killed and 10,000 were displaced because of this racial impetus that killed and caused the Tulsa, Oklahoma massacre. But then somebody would say to us, well, why are we talking about Oklahoma? Well, look right here in Atlanta, Georgia. I didn't know this until a few weeks ago when the 1906 massacre that took place right here in Georgia, where over 2 dozens of African Americans were lynched, murdered, right? And nearly 100 of African Americans were hurt and bodily harm during that Georgia massacre in 1906. Again, this was all driven by hatred, racism. And so when you start talking about critical race theory, I always like to leave our audience, our Under the Gold Dome audience, with some homework, right? Find out what critical race theory is, first off, because a lot of folks that talk about critical race theory don't know what critical race theory is. And I think when Governor Kemp signed that executive order, or you got school boards who are banishing the teachings of critical race theory. Just recently, Cobb County School Board said that they don't want critical race theory taught. Before that was Cherokee County. And so a lot of these school boards are pushing this anti-critical race theory, one, because they don't know what critical race theory is. But more importantly, the history of this country is just that, the history. And you need to include in our historical context all the history of America. For example, I'm 55 and I just learned back in 2016 about the hidden figures, right? Nobody knew who Katherine Johnson, Dorothy Vaughan, and Mary Jackson. These 3 brilliant African-American women is the reason why Glenn, the astronaut, was able to live out his dream and go into the frontier of and we call space, right? The 3 hidden figures, and that movie was properly named 3 Hidden Figures because no one knew Katherine Johnson, Dorothy Vaughan, or Mary Jackson. They should be included in our history. So there should be no conversation about NASA and astronaut John Glenn without talking about Katherine, Dorothy, and Mary. And so critical race theory, I find in conclusion, critical race theory is just another way for us to have a decent, relevant conversation about those contributions of African Americans and talk about the history of African Americans as relates to slavery, right? And so there's some good and bad history out there. All that history should be included in the textbooks. Whitewashing should not be in the place of government. I'm talking about the role of government. The role of government should not be whitewashing our history and those historical contributions to this country.
Bruce Dobbs asked the question, why is it called a theory as opposed to facts? Did you see that? Derek. Did we lose Derek?
So just like anything else, that's a great question, Bruce Dobbs. So when critical race theory was first discussed 40 years ago, it was done by some doctoral students that were doing a thesis about racism in this country and how racism basically dictated in the shaping of public policy, right? And so for example, when you look at the Voting Rights Act of 1965, because of racism, African Americans are the only category of people that every 25 years Congress have to vote that so that African Americans could vote in this country, right? And so it was a theory because these some brilliant African American students that were writing their thesis around the impacts around race in the United States. And so it just always remained critical race theory.
You had something that you wanted to get out before we close today. What was that?
Are you talking to me?
Yeah, you said that there was something that you wanted to get out.
Yes, I wanted the audience to know and to understand that someone made a decision to dump these issues about unemployment in the laps of the legislators. And there is really nothing that we can do. We don't work for the Department of Labor. We have been working hard since last year. We have individuals on the COVID-19 team and 2 individuals that have been spearheading also. I talked to the governor. He assigned one of his people because I told him, we're not getting a response. Our congressional counterparts, he won't respond to them. And he gave me the person to address it, and they're not responding to her. So I said, you are his boss. But now, as the senator said, he's on the ballot next year. We are his boss. And he is allowing these people to lose everything. And they did not cause this problem. They did not cause the pandemic. They are right in demanding that they get their unemployment benefits. And for him to address us and tell the media that we, the legislators, because we're helping them, are inciting a riot, is very offensive to me. So I think you need to know that this is what we have been dealing with. And I had a phone call just earlier on my cell phone from one of my constituents that could not get through. But it's amazing to me, and I'm gonna leave on this note, that the governor has opened everything else up in the state of Georgia, but he has not opened the Department of Labor.
All right. Well, we are right at 4 o'clock. And I want to thank our guests that we had on today. Both of them had to leave, but we appreciate them coming on and sharing some valuable information. Derek is out on the campaign trail. And where are you, Derek, today? Down in Savannah somewhere? Where are you?
South Georgia.
South Georgia. Okay. All right.
Yeah, with the area where we need more broadband.
Exactly. I was just going to say that.
You need to work on getting some broadband down there.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah, Lieutenant Governor.
Deborah, Sonia, any last words?
Oh, I want to say that I have so enjoyed being a co-host with each of the 3 of my colleagues here. So far under the Gold Dome, I am excited to have a little hiatus, but we will take it back up and bring you more important information, timely information that you should know, resources that you should know about when we come back after our summer break in September. So I just want to say thanks again for staying with us, listening, coming. We'll be running our reruns, but we'll also, through our Under the Gold Dome, provide some additional information as it comes out. And I'll say, I think one of the first things we may be able to share with you all is the schedule of public hearings related to redistricting, because we have a few coming up very soon. I think the Atlanta one is June 28th or so. We don't know the location, so once we have that, we'll make sure that we get that to you as well. So stay tuned here, and know that we will be back with more information. Thank you for joining us week after week.
And I just want to ditto what my senator said, and I am so pleased and excited that you all continue to tune in and get good information that you would not normally hear, and good questions that you ask us and you challenge us. Keep us on our toes. I'm going to miss you while we're gone, but we're going to be doing a lot of work. And like it was said, I will be traveling with the leadership team on the House Democratic side, caucus side, around Georgia, to make sure your questions are being heard and answered regarding redistricting. And like it was said, it will begin towards the end of June. And look for our bus, because we're going to have a bus, and we're going to be traveling from place to place to make sure you know what you need to know about this redistricting. And just thank you again.
All right. And Derek, anything? Last words? Derek is frozen.
Frozen.
Okay. Well, again, this is State Representative Roger Bruce, and I also want to thank everyone for joining us. We've been doing this for, several years now. And it started out with just me. Then it went from myself and Derek. And then we've added the two ladies on with us from the House and the Senate. And I think that, I want to say thank you for all of the support over the period of time that we've done this. We'll be back September the 10th. And I'm not sure exactly if we're going to stick to the same time or not. I'm being told that we probably need to consider a time that's more convenient, so we'll let you know. But in the interim, you will be seeing some of the reruns from some of our past episodes so that you can catch up. It's fortunate that a lot of the information that we provide is timely. Some of it is lasting over time. And so, stay tuned and look at those things and let us know if there are topics that you want us to cover when we come back. Just let us know what that is. So until then, you guys have a great, is Derek back? Did you want to say something, Derek?
Yeah.
Did you want to say something before we go, Derek? He just wanted to smile.
Yes.
He might.
Go to voteDerekJackson.org. VoteDerekJackson.org. And we're going to fix a lot of these problems.
All right.
A lot of these problems. I help you.
All right.
Helping out.
All right. Thanks again for joining us. Where?
Under the Gold Dome.
All right. Take care now.
Happy summer.
Be safe.
Is Kevin still around?
I'm wondering if we lost. Yes, that's live.
No, we're still live.
I'm sorry, my internet blinked in my building. But
Looks like we lost Roger.